This program is made possible in part by Nebraskans for Public Television. Consider this, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bales Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to UNO. You couldn't go more than a few months in the mid to late 1990s without hearing about the COPS program. Basically, it was a federal program that pumped billions of dollars into thousands of American cities to put more cops on the street and develop special programs. Crime did go down, but was there a connection? My guest this week on Consider This is Dr. Xiao Chow. He is with the Criminal Justice Department and has co-authored a study and made a presentation before Congress last week.
U.S. Senate.
Oh, that's even better. But I do want to give a seasonal thank you to the great folks at Rose Court at Eagle Run Square at 129th and Maple in Omaha. They always donate these beautiful poinsettias to sort of get us in the mood. It's not hard though this time of year because everybody's getting ready to leave school. They're in dead week, getting ready for finals, and then they're off, and maybe you'll get some time off.
Yeah.
But you've been very busy with this, putting this study together.
For the last 8 months.
That's a chunk of time.
Yeah, especially to pile all those available data together.
And that was what you did. You took data and pulled data that hadn't been done in other studies. It hadn't been correlated. How, as a taxpayer, you're a researcher and in criminal justice, so you just have a natural curiosity. I, as a taxpayer, have a curiosity about the billions that were pumped into programs that helped community policing, just put more raw numbers of police officers on the streets. What intrigued you about researching this? And you had a partner in Texas too, we should say.
And community policing in the 1990s is a big deal. Represent the most contemporary reform in American policing. So for the last 10 years, if you ask anything new in policing, it's community policing. And there has been debate about community policing, whether it works or it doesn't work.
And that puts a more intensive number of police literally in the community, or many communities or neighborhoods within cities.
Yeah, the community policing basically is the police need to go to the neighborhood and work with the local residents to address social disorder and crime issues. Previously, the police, usually you don't see police unless you call 911. So when you call 911, police will arrive. Now you have foot patrol police officers, patrolling
cops
in the
on
street.
Bikes.
Cops on bikes. So in this way, the cops increase their contacts with the local residents, and the purpose is to reduce the crime and also improve the quality of life among the local residents. For example, reduce fear of crime.
And also, it had it was more integrated with other public services that might be hallmarks of a neighborhood in trouble. Cars, what do they call them? Junk cars and graffiti and things like that that are indicators that a neighborhood is in trouble and that crime can find a better home there, a stronger foothold.
Yeah, that means it's almost the police have to acknowledge that we cannot combat the crime alone without the public support and input. So teamed up with the residents in the neighborhood, together we can make a difference.
So $6.1 billion, and there were 3 areas that this money went into over a period of years in the mid to late 90s. But there were some that were specific, because I remember Omaha and other communities in the state of Nebraska. In fact, there was even a debate in Omaha, should we accept the money to get these police officers? Because number one, do we then have to buy the whole concept of community policing? And 2, if we hire these officers, we're stuck with these numbers. And that costs officers, once the grant money might run out, cost a lot of money.
Yeah, the grant money, actually, there are 3 types. The first type is called hiring grant. So basically the federal governments provide about 70% of the money, and the locals can match with the 25%. That money is approved, granted, awarded. It's good for 3 years. So after 3 years, the local governments may pick up the rest of the funding for that officer.
And usually by then, cities tend to grow and they need more officers anyway. So it's not like they're really stuck with them.
No. So that's the first type. The second type is called Corps Mort program. That means redeployment of police officers. So the Corps office award grants to buy the laptop computers. So the officers will save time. Instead of writing the report every day, you spend an hour.
It's kind of like value added for the police officer to get more out of your cop. That's Cops More.
Yeah, Cops More. And also you hire civilians. So the civilians is working the desk job when the officers can work in the streets. So that's the second type of grant. The third one is called innovative grants, which is more targeted to the problem areas. So each city, when they apply for that, they must identify a problem in the city, say domestic violence. So they have to have a plan developed saying that if we get this amount of money, how can we execute this, the plan? So in this way, we can reduce our domestic violence incidents in the city. So that's the third type, called innovative grant.
Now, thousands of cities in this country received some of that money.
Yeah,
big and small.
Yeah. Today, if you ask anyone about how many police agencies, law enforcement agencies in this country, no one can give you an exact answer. And the number is close to like 17,000, including some departments may have only one officer.
Right, a very small one.
A very small one. And the Cops office, over that past 6 years, they funded 12,000 law enforcement jurisdictions.
So it was a very broad.
Very broad, almost cover, I would say that 90% of the population, 95% over that 6 years period of time with $6 billion spent.
Now you looked, let's talk population or percentage of the United States. You looked at cities that were above 10,000 and represented maybe 3/4.
Represent about 89% of population.
Of the population.
Most 89% of U.S. population live in the cities greater than 10,000 population, because we found that there's the crime pattern differ between cities greater than 10,000 or less than 10,000. Greater than 10,000, the crime rate just steadily declining. On the other side, the smaller cities, less than 10,000, the crime rate declined from 94 to 96. Then it's level off or even up a little bit.
But the dynamics in smaller cities are a little different, are they not, from bigger cities? What I'm saying is smaller cities may not have those huge socioeconomic impacted areas, whether you want to call them, bad area, poor areas. I mean, the word ghetto is sort of old-fashioned, but whatever you want to call, they don't tend to have these...
A ghetto or a hotspot, let's say.
Yeah, these real hot spots where no one wants to go because they're so bad, or they're bordering on that, or they could be that way if we don't intervene. So the dynamics are, more people know each other in a smaller town, so it might take more to actually bring it down because they may not be that high. Crime rates to begin with.
Much lower.
It's like when I lose weight, the first few, the first few pounds are easy, but when you get down to where, closer to where it should be,
where it should be, it's difficult.
It's a little harder.
Yeah, but the question is, in research on policing, very little knowledge we know how police officers do their job in small communities and how they fight against crimes. Very few people even know how they function, actually, the police officers or the departments, because those are the police departments with only 5 officers or 1 officer. So how they contact with the people, and I went to a professional meeting and I heard some stories about, in New York City, the police officers work there, they can walk in the streets and they're full of people. They're not afraid of being recognized because few people know who they are.
Yeah, by name, they know the uniform or...
Physically, it's very limited space, but individually, it's large space. But when you work in a small community, even though there are very few people, but everyone knows who you are. And deputy sheriffs in those small towns, they don't want to go to a video store to check out a video in their local county. because everyone will, the rumor will whisper, that deputy like to watch horror movie.
They'll be the talk of the town.
That will be talk of the town. So there's a huge difference between small and large cities. And
the other thing that might strike me, and you certainly tell me if I'm wrong, this is just intuitive and it may be wrong, is that when you talk about community policing, which was probably the biggest change in policing in a long time, at least how we think about approaching crime in large cities. In small towns, they've been sort of doing community policing forever because they're more part of the fabric.
Yeah, I think this.
So in other words, it wouldn't have to say we're going to have community policing in a town of less than 10,000. That wouldn't be such a stretch. That wouldn't be a quantum leap.
Yeah. In this sense, you are right in the sense that community policing is more informal contact between the police and residents. So this like back to 100 years ago when the police did their business. When the police make an arrest, usually it's in public place and people, bystanders, will all watch the police make an arrest, and the police drag that suspect to the phone box and make a phone call. The horse-drawn wagon will come over.
Plus, there was a cop on the beat. More.
Yeah, very informal.
Knew the cop on the beat. It was organized, but it felt looser. It felt more like it just belonged.
Yeah, it's very informal. So from that sense, if you look at the small town policing, it's very informal. People or the police officer usually handle their job, not like a big town police. And you will be amazed. I've been to many police departments. The first place usually I go is to look at their how many documents, forms they have. And in one police department, I counted like 40 different forms. So the police officer had to carry. Like when you have a traffic accident, that's one form. If I have multiple cars, more than 2 cars, that's another supplemental form. Then that's a form for graffiti report.
So he's a walking bureaucracy office.
Yeah. So community policing is a kind of, it's not moving toward the formal parts, it's more toward the informal, knowing your residents and have a partnership and have a friendship with your residents. And hopefully they all will be mobilized to, work with you.
One of the things that when they took the cop off the beat, and we need to get to whether the crime did drop as a result of this. We'll get to that correlation in a minute. But one of the things that happened when more police went into squad cars is that they were little encapsulated offices.
Yeah.
And they work in there. That is their office. And so the actual public, hi, how are you? How's it going? Not through any fault of anybody, but it.
Yeah, that was one of the arguments for community policing is crime incidence is only the tip of the iceberg, and underneath of that is the social disorder, the problem with the neighborhood, the drug dealing, all those. So when it's get to the point that police make an arrest, if the police, just like you said, go to the police patrol car, they don't have a daily contact with local residents anymore. No. They just answer 911. So
that's like saying a doctor can't do preventive medicine. He can only treat
the patient
once he's gotten the fever and the blisters and the whole thing.
So now the police would say that we want to get to the iceberg instead of the tips, because we were driven by that 911 call all the time. Now we want to take a big chunk of that big problem, the neighborhood problem, away.
Try to melt the iceberg from where it's the coldest.
Yeah, I have done surveys for the police department, and we asked the residents a dozen of questions about the problem in the neighborhood. It ranked from violent crime to traffic, for example, problem. And guess what? Usually the residents, the most frequent mentioned problem by the residents are social disorder things, just like teens hanging out in the street, or traffic problems. It's not a violent crime they are really concerned about, because those are rare.
But there's a natural feeling that certain things lead to a little more social chaos.
Yeah, correct.
And that they can escalate. Mm-hmm. For instance, that if a neighborhood is really run down and the police work with the permits and inspection office and all this other thing, that a rundown neighborhood with lots of junk cars and graffiti then becomes
lead to the
leads
crime.
to no one wants to rent those houses, but drug people will, because they can get in there because people can't rent this place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a domino. It's a spiral. Much better word.
Actually, in community policing, there's before community policing, there was an article in 1982 published in the Atlantic Monthly by Kelly and James Wilson called "Broken Window," and that started with a story about a psychiatrist, and he did an experiment. He put two cars. One is in Bronx, New York. The other is in a nice town in California. The car in Bronx, New York, within the first hour when he left, the window was broken. And then the radio was taken, the hook was open, and all the wires were taken. Then the car in 24 hours was upside down. Kids were jumping.
Each different, not one event, just a series of events.
Yeah. Then the kids were jumping on it. So the car in California was parked there for a week. No one even touched it. So he himself went there with a sledgehammer, broke the window. Now after that, people start taking things out.
The opening.
Yeah, so
The opening.
the argument here is if there's a sign of disorder, like a window is broken, if the police don't go in to take care of that, fix that window, more windows will be broken. That means that's a sign no one cares. Police don't care because police are busy addressing those 911 calls. So the social disorder, no one care, will come up as a domino effect. Then more windows will be broken, and then good people move out, and the crime spiral rise.
So that was sort of a foundation to a way of thinking,
for community policing,
changing,
yeah,
that
change.
it has to start at the really basic level,
yeah.
not the murder,
Not the murder, not the murder.
but that where there a door is open to considering crime.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have thought of it, or I wouldn't have gotten involved, but gee, there was this and this and this and this, and then the next person. Then the dynamics. It ripples.
Correct. Because it always starts with a kind of environment, which the more likely to the crime will rise.
Well, when this theory started being put into practice, I'm guessing that it was in order to do this, take those officers out of those cars and and only, they still had to answer 911 calls, that there needed to be more police officers.
Yeah, correct.
Hence,
that's 100,000 additional officers on the streets trying to reduce social disorder and fight against crime.
now we had a little disagreement here in Omaha, as I'm sure they have in other cities, where it became a political football over whether community policing, which if you went anywhere on the internet, you could see departments that were in various stages of adopting community policing, and most of them, at least the ones I could do in an internet search, were fairly happy with some of the things that were happening, and certainly the neighbors were happy. We, to his credit or to his, demise, one of the things that sort of may have led to Hal Daub leaving office as mayor, or how people perceived him, is that he was dogged in his determination that we not have community policing in the sense that everybody was referring to it, because it was touchy-feely. It was, gee, play basketball with the kids, and he thought that was a waste. And but we still, the funny thing was, I think they put another name on it, another spin, but we still adopted community policing.
Yeah, I think so.
And kept it.
I think so. Yeah, in terms of
if you'd go to precinct meetings, if you would go to neighborhood group meetings, you would see community policing in action.
Yeah.
So I guess what's in a name? But anyway.
Also, you see bike patrol officers, by Omaha Police Department in the Old Market, all those.
Oh yeah.
All those are new.
High visit, when there's big groups of people, you have the horses and the bikes and even the paramedics on bikes. In other words, getting amongst the people where they can see things, where the eyes and ears are.
Yeah, to help them to first the police. I think no matter what happens, a government agency need the public support. The public support is not like given. You have to go out and actively seek for that public support. And for the police and the foot patrol, bike patrol, all these different tactics, give the police an opportunity to reach to the communities.
And isn't part of it, again, not being that the only contact with police or the only thing that you see in your neighborhood is somebody getting busted?
Yeah.
You know, my husband's a firefighter, and he says one of the good things about being a firefighter is you're always helping people. One of the bad things about being as a cop is you're always perceived as the one that's, you know, catching them on the highway going too fast or busting the guy down the street. I mean, they're always perceived in a doing a negative thing, even though they're doing a positive thing by.
But sometimes I have seen some police department who changed. I mean, the culture of the department changed. Some police department remain in a very traditional culture, like crime fighting image. And I can give you two examples. In one police department I visited, and I went there and I was told a story about the kids. They brought the bikes, dirt bike, on the top roof of the school building. So the school had dooms, so the kids were surfing on the doom. So the principal and the teachers heard the noise on the roof, and they called the police officer. The police officer went on the top of the roof, then checked, found all those dirt bikes, and they got those kids and with the bikes, and everyone was happy. That's another city, almost same size. Then once there was a cat on the pole, so the grandma's cat, you know, they called the police, and the police officer climbed onto the pole and get that cat out. Then the police officer begged all those residents, don't tell my fellow officers, because if you told them about that, they don't treat me as a police officer, real police officer, because I'm not fighting crime. I'm climbing.
Not
on
a
the
crime
pole.
buster.
Yeah.
I'm a soft kind of guy, and I'm not supposed to.
Yeah. So you see the difference between the two departments.
All right, so the federal government decides to support this in terms of billions of dollars for the COPS program and the three prongs of that program. You decided you were going to take a real good look-see using uniform
Crime
reporting figures and some other things. And did you find that it helped? That helped?
Yeah, basically, you know, there are stories about community policing which are successful.
Anecdotal things.
Here and there, in New York City, for example, crime rate has dropped 40% here and there, but there's no national study to find out whether crime rates actually has been down because of the COPS funding. So I talked with the COPS office and got the data about 6,100 U.S. cities, literally 145 million population in the data set for 6 years, from 94 to 99. And from uniform crime reporting data, and I have the crime instance of each city, the same 6,100 cities for 6 years. And it's a
Those
huge
are some
data
numbers.
set. Yeah. So I controlled for the social demographic factors, and we found that hiring grants, if you spend, it's like if you spend additional $1 for each resident, you will reduce
Per resident, like if you took
resident.
all the dollars you have for copying,
per
for
resident.
policing, and added $1 per human being resident.
in a city, you will reduce five violent crime incidents, which are murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. 5 incidents, and 12 property crime incidents, means burglary,
theft,
and auto theft per 100,000 residents. That's the crime rates.
So you will reduce. Now we know that crime went down X number percent, pretty much across the board in the United States. In some of the bigger cities where you maybe it was better, and there was a combination of factors, probably the cops' money, real pinpointed efforts, but you can actually show with those figures that.
Yeah, this putting in a very simple term, if there's a city of 100,000 population, you invest $100,000. That means each person
per person, over and above.
Yeah, for the hiring grants, you reduce 5 violent crime incidents, 12 property crime incidents. That's for hiring grants. For the innovative grants, you reduce 12 crime incidents plus 40 property crime incidents.
So that's 12 violent crimes and 40 property crimes. Now, how does somebody gauge? Is that a viable number? Is that, if you were dealing with percentages? Okay, that's raw numbers of crimes. You know, you're dealing with kind of. Is that I suppose if you're the human being on the receiving end of that crime, you know, that's an important number.
Yeah,
Any one of
yeah.
those 5, any one of those 12,
Yeah.
any one of those 40.
Yeah, actually, there are some dollars attached to each crime. There have been some studies, like one murder incident. If someone is murdered, the number I believe is like $800,000 for one murder, and
The cost
the cost of
to s-
someone
s-
died, the expenses, the psychological suffering, and also the loss of the working hours for that person, for example. 800,000 is the low end of the
Right.
estimate. And
it seems rather crude to put a dollar on it, but we're
Yeah.
number crunchers.
Yeah, yeah. So, like rape usually will cost about $80,000.
I don't doubt that in
Yeah.
terms of the ramification of the
Yeah.
mental
and mental
health
suffering
and
the
loss of job or productivity,
Yeah.
or not to even mention the things you can't put a number on.
The best example is yesterday a B-2 bomber was lost in the en route to Afghanistan,
the fighting over in
in the
Afghanistan.
Indian Ocean. So 4 crew members were rescued, and it was commented by the Joint Chief of Staff saying that we are lucky because we rescued people, so the humans, the air crew was survived. But however, the cost of that plane is $200 million. But humans are more important. So when you attach a number to the crime, it seems that the money is worth spent.
Okay, we have less than a couple of minutes left. If you had to say what were the most important findings, if you were giving a talk and putting it down into 1 minute, which isn't normal, what would you say that the COPS grants that we all paid for as Americans, what they did?
I think COPS grants, the most effective way to fight the crime is use innovative grants. The city already have a clear plan about what they are going to do. And you fund that project, like domestic violence case against drug market or something like that. That's the most effective. Hiring officer is also effective. If you have more money, give the money to the highest crime area. That means the bigger cities. The smaller cities, we find that less than 10,000, it's not that effective.
And the ripple effect of improving the quality of life will pass through the whole community.
A reduced fear of crime.
Well, I sure want to thank you, Dr. Hsiao, for being with us today. And I imagine if people want to see your study in depth, you'd be glad to provide them that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and good work for the Department of Criminal Justice at
my
UNM.
pleasure.
Thank you for joining us this week and enjoying the nice university, the nice guests, and of course, these nice poinsettias. Have a good week.
This program is made possible in part by Nebraskans for Public Television.